Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. Now yes, I know I said I was taking a break and I have a long way to go until I consider myself to be okay, but sadly it's the nature of the beast, because if I was the sort of person who could turn down an opportunity to speak in defense of human rights on one of the biggest TV shows in the country and expose a Tory in the process during an election year, my mental health wouldn't be in the state it is right now to begin with. So when Good Morning Britain called me yesterday and invited me to debate Charlie Rowley, the former advisor to Michael Gove, about the French police not stopping asylum seekers coming to the UK even though we paid them to do so, I was on the first train to London.
I just find it incredible that the very existence of this government is based on the idea that we should be controlling our borders, not the EU, and now suddenly the same government is complaining that the EU isn't controlling our borders. But what this really is about is the fact that this government, yet again, spending millions and millions of our money and burning it on the altar of sticking it to migrants when ordinary people are struggling to pay their bills, whether it's spending £500 million on French police, which doesn't work, whether it's spending £169,000 per refugee to send them to Rwanda, which hasn't worked, or whether it's even Brexit in terms of controlling immigration that's caused major labour shortages, which has made our economy worse, again, during a cost of living crisis. Every time this government says they're tackling immigration, it just leaves the British people with another bill to pay.
Now I was on 3 hours sleep because my train got in at midnight, I had to order a pizza, and I was up at 5, but I thought I did okay. But Charlie Rowley then comes back at my first point about how ironic it is that we're now asking an EU country to control our borders.
Well, the UK left the EU, it didn't leave Europe, and there is a whole migration problem happening, not just in the UK, but right across Europe. So every country has a responsibility to deal with that issue.
Yes, every country does have that responsibility, and other large European countries like Germany, Italy, France, all take in more refugees than we do.
You're absolutely right. The money is going to France, but it is a French problem. They have to help because the UK taxpayer is funding that support for France to help try and stop those boats coming.
Asylum seekers coming to the UK is a French problem, so they have to help. It's the sheer entitlement for me.
If you're not funding that project, you'll end up funding the hotel costs, which the UK government is trying to close down, because it's not fair on the UK taxpayer to spend that £6 million a day on hotel accommodation for people that come into this country illegally.
Those aren't the only options, though. If they spent that money on actually processing people on time, like France and Germany process their refugees significantly faster than we are, then those people could then join the UK population, enter our labour force, and given that we have major labour shortages, that would actually help people here right now.
But now we get to the more traditional Tory arguments about asylum seekers.
You can't just come into the UK illegally. I mean, back in 2022, there were about 50,000 people that entered the country illegally.
Now, sadly, I'd already interrupted him once, and so I tried not to do it again, but if I had, I would have pointed out that these people are not entering the UK illegally. People have a right to seek asylum in any country they choose, and that right is listed under the Refugee Convention, which the UK has signed.
There's a lot of people that are coming in over in those small boats. A lot of them are economic migrants.
Yeah, so this is they're not real refugees, they're just economic migrants argument. So the Refugee Council in 2020 took Home Office data, so the government's data, and found that 91% of the people who cross the channel in those small boats are from countries where there's a legitimate reason to flee. Last year, the most common country of origin for people crossing the channel was Afghanistan, and the second one after that was Iran, two places that I'm sure none of us here would feel entirely safe.
You talk about fairness. Have we really been fair? Because these people wouldn't get onto these dangerous boats if they had safe and legal routes. Suella Braverman has actually confirmed that there aren't safe and legal routes for them to get to the UK. And when you consider just how insane it is that right now, Suella Braverman confirmed that there aren't. And consider that right now, we actually make the Middle East less safe, whether it's selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, which are used to bomb hospitals and schools in Yemen, and then we send Yemeni refugees back to Yemen, or the fact that we're currently selling weapons to Israel, who've killed 30,000 people in Gaza, and now we're going to have to deal with a major refugee crisis next year in terms of the people there who are victims of a genocide. Are we going to send them out to Rwanda as well?
Now, there's a long back and forth argument about which countries the government does and doesn't accept refugees from, and a subtle nod as to why that might be, but you can watch the original video for that. But listen to what happens when Charlie Rowley tries to argue that we're so compassionate because we'll open our arms to whoever needs our help in future.
So it is up to the UK government to decide who can come into this this country for the UK government to set up these schemes. Now, if we need to extend that in other parts of the world, of course we will, because the British public know, and the British public will always stand up for people that are fleeing persecution, who need to come to this country.
Do you support that for Gaza? Do you support that for Gaza? Given that we're currently aiding and abetting genocide in Gaza, do you support that for the victims in Gaza?
I don't accept that anybody is aiding and abetting genocide.
We're selling weapons that are being used to kill thousands of people, so I think
the UK lawyers have suggested we may well be aiding and abetting.
They're suggesting it, but there'll be others that suggest otherwise, and it's a.
I think we're moving into a different.
The man was smiling while denying an ongoing genocide. Yes, I was a bit snide with my flat earther comment, but I wasn't going to let him have the last word. I'm Feme. Make sure you follow F Politics if politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.